You start? Okay. So, hello, welcome to the log parsing session. And my name is Thomas, and in the next 25 minutes, we are going to talk about how to parse log messages in operations for logs, or the previous names was Log Insight, and what features we have to make it more efficient. So first of all, parsing logs is important because usually the log messages coming into Log Insight or operations for logs are very unstructured. And the idea is to get the information out of those unstructured messages, to have a way to visualize those data, to create alert definitions, dashboards, and so on. The easiest way to do this out of the box is using the static fields. So we have already in operations for logs, we have so-called static fields like hostname, like source, timestamps, and all those things. And those static fields are typically included in either the not the content packs, in the integrations, or automatically in the system itself. In addition to that, we have so-called extracted fields. I will show you how this works in a demo in a second. And those extracted fields is anything you would like to add to the system. And it works pretty easy. So anytime a log message arrives in operations for logs, you can select a part of this log message, and you can say Log Insight to get a name and created so-called pre and post context to let operations for logs recognize the same piece of message over and over again. The problem with this is it works very well, but it's not guaranteed that every single message, depending on how well you have defined the pre and post context, will be always the same result. It might happen then you will miss messages, and in that case you need to redefine, to make your pre and post context more specific. At some point you will end up in in regex expressions to make it very, very sophisticated. You may use additional context here down there to limit the number of messages being parsed by this specific extracted field. But whatever you do, it might happen that, especially when you use complex extraction rules, you will overload the system. It's happening over and over again that, let's say, very complex extracted fields applied to all messages can easily bring down your whole operations for logs instance. So you click on something, and it will take a long time to create a dashboard. It is usually because of extensive use of extracted fields. So what options do we have? The options we have is the agent-side parsing. How many of you know that you have a Log Insight agent available? Okay, few don't know. So we have an agent on every Log Insight instance. You can download the agent for Windows and Linux, install the agent of your virtual machine, whatever, it could be also physical server, it doesn't matter. Install the agent, and then use the agent to create a configuration to parse the log messages directly on the agent itself before sending them to Log Insight. So all these messages, usually you won't use Syslog. You may use Syslog, but the agents are basically meant to parse logs on a file system. That's what we're doing in this demo. So for example, you have an application server writing log files. You could use Syslog, rsyslog, whatever, to take those files and send them using Syslog to logs, and then use regex, pre-context, post-context to parse it. But again, that's costly from the performance perspective. Or you simply install the agent on this virtual machine, configure it appropriately, and let the agent parse those things for you. And this is what we will do in a second in the demo. First of all, there are a few popular log formats supported by Log Insight, or I say Log Insight, but you know, it's operations for logs. Maybe it's something different tomorrow. So we have CLF, we have Microsoft IIS formats, CSV files, key value pairs, Windows event logs, JSON. All this is supported by the agent. And for this, there are available parsers you use in the configuration. And you can see we have parsers exactly matching those very popular log formats. Now, that's almost all I had for slides. Now let's change to the demo, but that's the funny part. So first of all, if you go to logs and you go to management, you have this agents part in here. Here you can go and download the agents, either for Windows, MSI, RPM, deb packages, bin packages. That's all available. Once you have downloaded it, install it on your virtual machine. Usually, to keep the configuration on logs of the log agents simple, you create agent groups. And I've created one for this demo in here. It's Explore Linux. It's only one VM in this. You can use host names or IP addresses to group agents so they receive the same config. And once grouped, you have the agent configuration in here. You can use either the graphical way to configure the agent. I tend to use the manual way to do this. It's a kind of an ini file, and now I will show you how it looks like. So let's pretend our Linux machine is doing something, creating logs, and we would like to parse those logs. So now I have in here, I have a folder with a not that one, sorry, that's already opened in here. So I have this log file, and let's imagine we have something like this. So you have an app, and this app is simply writing down first name, last name, city, country. And you would like to parse it. So you need something to parse the log and to have the field first name, last name, city, country. So for this to work, I have created the first config. It's pretty simple. It's simply this one in here. I will just copy this over to my log agent and quickly explain what that means. So this config says it's going to be a file log, so I will ingest or parse log files on a file system. You can have different sections, so that the section has to have a name. That's the name of the section. You can also apply tags like metadata, so you can easily find your log messages. So it will always have a tag, and then it's pretty obvious the directory, where to look for the log files, and what files to include. This is all I need. When I now save the agent, it will automatically be pushed to the agent to update the configuration to all the agents in the same group. And if I go now and let's pretend we are writing this message in here into the log file, save it, and we go to the logs. We will see we have received a message. Oh, that's the old one. It's still not there. That's the old one. Let's write it again. Let's quickly check if I'm really writing the right log file in here. So COPE explore 25, that's correct. And that's the explore, yes, that's the right one. So we should have our log messages coming in here. Now it takes a few seconds to update the agent. So now we see our messages here. We have a first name, last name, city, country, but there's nothing being parsed at the moment. Just a message being sent to logs. Now, how to do this? We need to specify in a config file so we need to specify the parser, how to parse the message. And that's pretty easy. That's what I have already prepared in here. We say, okay, that's the whole section. We just simply adopt or adjust the configuration to be more specific. I send it first so it can be saved, and then we explain what's going on. So now I have slightly changed the config. So the first 4 lines are the same, and in the last line I'm saying to parse the log files, use the parser mycsv. The parser is described here. You can have multiple parsers, so again multiple sections with a name. mycsv, it's this one. The base parser will be the one provided by logs out of the box, which is CSV. And then I have a few options. The first option is to use comma as the separation. You could use semicolon, whatever. And in the next one, I'm specifying what will be names of the values of the log message. So the first one will be my first name, then my last name, my city, my country. So now if I do exactly the same, and I add a few more lines to the log file, and save it. Now we see that the new message has been ingested, and now we have my first name, my last name, my city, my country already parsed as a field. Everything happening on the agent, so there is no impact on logs. And then you can use those fields in your alert definitions, in dashboards, and so on. Now, the next improvement is, let's imagine that's a very simple log message, so there is not really much in it, right? Let's imagine somehow decided to change the way the application is working, and instead of having just the city name, someone added the zip code to the logic. So we have something like this in a log message, which will then break your parsing, because now the city is, of course, the whole thing. It's the zip code and the city. It's not what you would like to have, right? Now you need to split it up into zip code and city. And this is, again, the power of agent-side parsing. We improve our configuration, and I will explain what it does once I have copied it over in here. So what is not now happening is that's still the same, but then now we have the fields as the previous ones, my first name, my last name, and now the third one is a zip city combination, and then we have a country. The field decoder is a keyword where you can say, okay, And for this one, for the my zip city, use another parser. So for zip city, go to use the code city parser. The code city parser is described here. It's also a CSV, but this time separated by the colon, and the fields will be my zip and my city. And we say exclude the my zip city because this field doesn't help us with anything. So we can have exactly what we need. It's already saved, and then let's write a few lines of log messages in here. And check what it's doing right now. Now, you see we have now my zip, the zip code separated, and the city separated. That works perfectly fine. And, sorry, let's go to this one. It's the city parser. We could even have timestamps. Just because of the time. If there is a timestamp in front of the whole log message, you can simply go and then add the second field decoder. So we have the field decoder for the timestamp. We have a field decoder for the zip city. The zip city one will go into this decoder. The timestamp will go into this decoder. You specify the timestamp, the format of the timestamp. So you will parse the whole message with all the parts of the log message automatically on the agent side. Now, the more advanced thing in here, even more advanced than this, is this one, because we have 7 minutes, and this one is pretty complex. That's the number 8. We skip few of those parsers just to. So let's imagine you have a network device or Linux machine with some networking application, web browser, web server, whatever, and this application is writing log messages like those messages. So we have a message like that's a REST call. So there's a delete call with the return code and the error message. And the error message is my message equals access denied, and the other one, the info message, is in another format. So, could be that someone started developing an application and the first developer was using the key value pair and the second developer creating the info message was using a JSON format. Now it's really complex how to parse these log messages. So this is where I created this config file, so this one, the last one. And I've already prepared a few lines of messages. Just write a few lines of messages. And then let's check what's in logs. It's still not here. Let me check if I'm writing the right one. Explore to explore. So explore home, explore 2 logs. It looks good. Everything looks good. Everything looks. That's the wrong one. Right log. This one. Yeah. So now. Now here we are. So now the messages are coming in, and I need to parse to use different parsers depending on the value info. So if it's info, I need another parser as when it's error. When it's error, I need to use another parser because it's simply a different format. So for this, we have so-called conditional parsers, and it looks like it looks like very complex, but the idea is pretty simple. So the beginning of the file log config is exactly the same. Few tags, there is the directory, include the log file, and then in the first step, just use the myclf parser. The myclf parser is saying the base parser is in that case CLF, so the common known log format. And then that's the CLF language. That's nothing reinvented. That's the CLF language of describing log messages. And we say the first thing will be the IP. So there will be the name of the field, generator IP, then the user, then the request, then the response size, and then the response status, and then the message. And now, for the log message, so the last part, we're gonna check if the response status, this one, so the info or error, so if it's error, then use the error parser. If this field is info, then use the info parser. And that's pretty simple. The info parser is JSON, the error parser is KVP, and simply recognize or parse everything, and in that way any message coming in will be correctly parsed. We see it, let's make it a bit bigger, I hope that works. That should work in here. Yeah. So now we see that because that's info, and we have the generator response status is set to info, right? So it's info, it's parsing, this is a JSON file, and my response is welcome to code. And in case the response was an error, or was down here, so if in case that's error, so we have the response status set to error. The message is using the key value pair, so my message is access denied. So in that way, even if you have, and you can nest those parsers into parsers into parsers into parsers. So if you have very complex messages, you don't have to use regex expressions. So just create your given. You can use the agent, put the agent on the system, create the agent config, and it will do a lot of work for you without having impact on the logs instance. So now let's quickly jump to the demos. Just 1 minute left. Again, you can set custom tags simply for filtering, for maybe forwarding. So take your messages, specify where to look for the log files, what log files to parse, what parser you are using, and here again the timestamp, the first name, the last name, the zip city combination, the country, and for the timestamp we're using this parser. For the code city for the zip city combination we're using this parser. So this is how it works with nesting parsers and using them to get the information you need. And then again the conditional parsing here as an example. 14 seconds. It was on time. Thank you very much. Please take your survey. And if you have any questions, I'm in front of the Code Theater here. Thank you, and have fun today in the evening.